What's going on, folks? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Adventure Talk Live. If you have not seen this segment before, so on the Adventure One channel, we do a lot of trip videos, hiking, hunting, camping, all kinds of stuff like that. And it seems like instead of interrupting those videos to just talk about stuff, we ended up just rolling that into a separate conversation. So we've got the chat open as well. So if you want to say hey, want to ask a question, anything like that, just feel free to type it in the chat. And just as we kind of talk about stuff. So I keep saying we, but let me actually introduce who's on the other line. So today I've got my buddy Jonathan. We met several years ago. Jonathan was he was in the Marines, so he's been through all that hellaciousness. He's super into camping, outdoors, hunting. Just has a lot of adventure, both in the background and forward looking. So Jonathan has done a lot of camping and stuff, but recently we went to Big Bend National Park and hiked up the Cascade Trail. I just put a video on my channel, and Jonathan was with me on that trip. So I wanted to just kind of recap that trip a little bit, but then Jonathan's done some other adventures since then, and so he'll tell us about those. So welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be on here. I'm looking forward to talking about the last adventure I was on and hopefully some upcoming adventures.
Yeah, I mean, you've been up to a lot. I mean, let's recap the Big Bend trip like super quick. We don't have to go through it, but
Glacier, or not Glacier.
yeah, I said Big
Grand
Bend. That
Tetons.
was like I went to Big Bend years ago. Tetons, thank you.
Yeah, the Grand Tetons.
Which was amazing. I'm so used to the flat land of North Texas that actually going up to like real mountains and thinner air and snow and beautiful just conifer trees and glacial lakes was incredible.
That trip was amazing, and seeing all the animals and all the nature is I just love getting out in those mountains. The Tetons are definitely one of my favorite places to go, and it's nice that they're only 4 hours away from me.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I didn't mention earlier for anybody watching is Jonathan moved to Salt Lake a couple of years ago from Texas, so he is now in a definitely higher altitude, surrounded by lots of beautiful mountains, unlike North Texas, where it is just flat as can be.
Yeah, ever since the move, we have just gone on adventure after adventure, just because you have so many things at your fingertips. It's for for myself and my wife, it's definitely a better move and a better place for us than Fort Worth and Dallas was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sounds like you've really made the most of it. On
Yeah.
the Grand Tetons trip, what were some quick highs and lows on that trip?
Oh man. The highs were just one beautiful view after another, and definitely on the first day of hiking around Jenny Lake, when we were around 10 miles in on the hike, 9 or 10 miles, and we just stopped at that little serene area, and the water was crystal clear, and we decided to take a dip after a long day of hiking, and the water was probably 50, 52 degrees. That was edible. The
Yeah.
lows were the hellacious farts that everyone was having from the horrible camp food, which I will own up to. That was my fault for bringing Velveeta skillet meals, but they were high calorie, and they did what they needed to do.
And more. Yeah, that was a combustion rich environment for sure.
I don't know how there were so many mosquitoes still around us.
Yeah, we pretty much burned up the atmosphere up there.
Yeah.
Well, and you also need to talk about the story very briefly. We don't need to go into too much detail about how you nearly took a tumble in the Tetons.
Oh, yeah. So we stopped at this little switchback, and it had a pretty steep drop off, just right on the edge, and we decided to take a picture. And so while you were getting the camera ready, me and a couple of buddies are standing near the edge. I took a step back, and my heel hit a rock, and I just started falling backwards, and I just said, "Oh shit!" and both of my buddies on either side of me just grabbed me. And I was like, oh, you just saved my life.
Fortunate for their Spider-Man reflexes, just caught you like right before you started going back.
Yeah, because that would have been 100 feet, 150 feet down. That
Yeah,
was a little scary.
that might have been a little rough. But you did not fall. You
I
survived it,
didn't.
came out in one piece, and seems like you came out better for it, or at least you enjoyed it.
Definitely a bonding moment between me and the other guys that just saved my life.
Well, yeah, that trip was a lot of fun, and tentatively, we're talking about going back next year. We were originally going to do a long loop, and part of it was closed. So I still want to do the Grand Tetons loop, go all the way around the whole thing.
Absolutely. I mean, we basically hiked the equal distance that it would have taken to do that whole loop.
Yeah. Well, and then so you being a crazy man, after we got back and we were all, moping about our feet being sore and tired of eating dehydrated food and stinking up in fart-filled tents and all that, you went back and did another hike that
I
same
did.
afternoon.
My my wife wanted to go out to Fifth Water Hot Springs. Uh, I probably shouldn't talk about it because I don't want more people going there because it's just this nice little oasis in the wintertime. But it is beautiful. But it's a 5 mile round trip hike that my wife wanted to do as soon as I got back. So I sucked it up and I did it.
Nice, nice. Well, and I saw some pictures from it, and it sounds like you don't want to spoil where it is and all that, but it was beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's especially once it gets a little colder and once the snow starts falling, all the minerals in the water turn at this nice blue hue, and there's a couple of spots where the water coming out of there is about 105, 106, so it's nice and toasty even in
Oh
the winter.
wow, that's cool. Is it like that year round?
No, when we went out there, it was almost bone dry. There, I mean, obviously there was still water coming up from the springs, but the water that normally feeds the river that comes through there is all snow melt, and it was almost all dry in that little valley. Like one valley over, the water was raging. It was great. We jumped in, we splashed around, but in that valley, there was hardly anything.
Huh. So it's all or nothing, really.
Yeah, exactly. And we had just a horrible snow season this last season. It was awful. Did not
Horrible
get enough
is
snow.
in no snow, or horrible is in a lot of snow.
No, we just didn't get enough snow.
Gotcha.
No,
I was gonna say I have no gauge for that being from
I'm
Texas.
not going to complain about snow. I mean, that's just how much more mountain time we get.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Well, so since then, you've definitely gone on at least one big adventure. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my wife and I just celebrated our 5 year anniversary.
Congrats.
So
That's freaking
thank
awesome.
you.
Cheers to you.
Thank you. So we decided that we would go up to Canada, which is about a 14-hour drive. But we figured, hey, 5 years, let's do something big for it. So I got a little bit of time off, and on a Wednesday afternoon, right after work, we headed north. We stopped in Montana, but along the way, there were so many bugs. So many bugs. My car has permanent damage on the front from all the bugs. All their guts have just eaten
Oh,
away.
I think you said bucks, like muley bucks.
No, no, bugs.
Bugs.
Tons of bugs. But we drove a few hours north and just got into Montana and camped along a river and got nice and cool the further north we went. Woke up early and headed north, and we stopped for some wine. So if you're ever in Montana, do not go to Glacier Sun Winery. It was the worst wine I have ever had in my life. It was like they mixed kombucha nail polish and apple cider vinegar in with all of their wine. I
That
couldn't even
that
finish a
sounds
single one.
delicious.
It was horrible. It was so horrible. And that's one of the traditions that my wife and I do for our 5 year. We always go to a new
Go out in the
winery.
middle of nowhere and find horrible wine.
Yes, yes, exactly. No, we find a winery nearby, and we do a flight of wines, and we pick out our favorite, and we save that bottle for the next year,
Oh,
every year.
cool.
Yeah. And so every anniversary we drink the bottle from last year, and it's just a fun tradition we really love.
It becomes a way to
But
look back on the previous trip while you're making the next adventure.
exactly.
That's cool.
Exactly. And it usually turns out really well, just not so well this time.
Well, will you be saving that bottle of wine, or are you gonna find something
Oh,
to sub in?
we we did not buy a bottle of wine from there.
Sounds
There's
like a
there's
good call.
another winery. There's another winery we went to, but we uh we got done from there, and we figured if we were going to go all the way up to Banff, we might as well stop at Glacier National Park, which is just absolutely incredible. If you can go there, absolutely do it. There's so many beautiful views. Even though while we were up there, all of these fires, I mean, the U.S. is basically burning to the ground, or at least the western half of the U.S. I mean, Utah
Dang.
has nearly burned entirely. Um, California fires, there's been Idaho fires, Montana fires, and this is all going on while we're going north. And, and to Glacier, we decided to stop at Lake McDonald. And you may have seen some pictures of Lake McDonald. It's usually it's usually a picture from the shoreline just looking out at the lake, but you have all these beautifully colored rocks along the shoreline that just really pop. I mean, you have these whites and these reds and these yellows and just these incredible rocks that just you wonder how there's that many colors along the
Yeah.
shore. But once we got to Lake McDonald, yeah, the shore popped, but there was so much smoke from all the fires, we could hardly see the other shoreline across the lake. It was-
Whoa. So you just had this weird like atmospheric haze.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we didn't even see half of Glacier because of all the smoke. Uh, we wanted to go to, let's see, like Trail of the Cedars and Virginia Falls and Logan Pass and Apakuni Falls. We wanted to go to all these places, but the majority of them were closed because of the fires. They were having fires all around those areas. It was crazy. So
Oh, the
once
fires,
we got,
they were actually in the park?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, I didn't realize that. I was thinking it was just like nearby and wind had blown like all the smoke in and it just kind of got trapped in those valleys. But it was actually, I didn't realize it was actually in the park.
yeah. I'll actually get more into that in a second or in a couple of minutes. But after we got done with Lake McDonald, we went to Going to the Sun Road, which was incredible. You're climbing up one of the mountains, and they have a visitor center at the top. And as you're climbing, you're climbing above the smoke, but at the same time, there's still these big chunks of snow and ice that are still, and it's like with all this greenhouse effect, and it's like 90 degrees out. It's just so
Golly.
hot. I know. So went up Going to the Sun Road, and we saw as much as we could of Glacier. But like I said, I mean, if you're not within a mile of something, maybe even a half a mile, it's just blocked with this haze of smoke. It
Wow.
was, yeah, it was sad, but it was kind of interesting in a way just to see how much all of these fires are affecting everywhere we are over here out in the West. Because ever since we left Utah, or when we left Utah, there was smoke the whole way because there were so many fires in Utah as well. And so I just figured it was the fires from California and Utah, but we later found out that there were just fires the whole way up to Canada.
Golly. Well, and there's another YouTuber I follow who lives up in Canada and he was on a trip about the same time and he was kind of seeing the same phenomenon. So I think it was just kind of everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it was. So uh, that's pretty much all we did at Glacier that first time, and just kept going until we finally reached the border. And the border is like, as soon as you get out of Glacier, the border is like right there. And we wanted to go further into Glacier and see Glacier National Park on the Canadian side, but there were actually fires blocking our way, so we couldn't go up there. There's supposed to be a really beautiful hotel on a lake on the Canadian side, but unfortunately we couldn't do that.
Wow.
So as soon as we got out of the park and hooked a left, the border was like within 15, 20 miles. And as soon as you hit the border, it's just flat. It's so boring. It's so incredibly boring heading north all the way to Calgary.
Which you don't
I
think, at least I don't think of, because I see so many pictures of Canada and I see all the mountains and just these huge old growth forests, and that's what I think of in my head. I don't think of just the central Canada where it's just plains.
Right, right. And that's exactly what we were thinking. We thought at least some rolling hills. I
Yeah.
mean, while we're going through there, I'm just thinking of Dumb and Dumber when he's like, that John Denver's full of shit, man. I thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier. So it was nothing but farmland, and it was just nothing to call home about. Absolutely nothing. But we drove up into Calgary. We stayed in downtown Calgary, and it's a city. I mean, it's like any other city. Kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of Dallas, but nothing to really comment on there. But we stayed there for a night and headed out west of Banff. And within like 15, 20 minutes west of Calgary, you start seeing the hills start rolling. And I think it's only 45 minutes, 40, 45 minutes before you really hit the mountains west of Calgary. And it's just crazy to see this much flat land. And it's not like there's a ton of rolling hills. It's like flat land, and then bam, you're at the mountains.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it was also hard to see because we weren't expecting all the smoke up in Canada as well. We figured, oh yeah, if we just keep going north, if we go north for 14 hours from Salt Lake City, I'm sure there won't be any smoke up there. But it was even worse in Canada. I would say it was much worse in Canada than anywhere along the way.
That's crazy.
It was really sad, but I didn't realize there were so many fires up in Canada as well, just stretching from California all the way north.
Wow. Yeah, it just seemed like, I mean, the last couple of years seems like they've been bad for fires, but I guess this year was just especially bad.
Yeah, it it was definitely especially bad, and I'm hoping that next year there won't be as many fires in Utah because there's nothing left to burn. It's all burned to the ground, you know.
That's that's not the best way to achieve that result, but I guess if it achieves the result, that's one way to look at it.
Well, I mean, you also have these idiots driving along Highway 15 and 80 that are throwing flammable things trying to start fires. There was a guy that he contributed to several fires from, uh, I think possibly Montana, but from Wyoming down through Utah all the way over to Colorado. He was just starting fires along the highway.
And that's
Just a
why the
complete
Mormons
jerk.
don't let you have fireworks in Utah.
Yeah, I wish they sell fireworks within city limits every corner.
Wait. Oh, so you can't buy beer, but you can buy fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, you can buy it at the liquor store.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
just not at a grocery
But,
store or something.
but
But
anyway, so
yeah, you made
we
this 14-hour trek. You went through all this smoke through the northern US. You crossed the border, exchanged all your American money for ecstasy and maple syrup. Then you kept going to Calgary and you got to the park.
so we get to the park, and the conversion rate was in our favor. So there's a lot of maple syrup and ecstasy. A lot. You know, we're getting Canadian 30 to our dollar. So that was nice. We get to Banff, and there's a ton of people. So as soon as we get to Banff, there's a main road, and then there's the scenic route. So we take the scenic route just a little bit north,
You have
and
to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that leads us to Johnston Canyon, the lower and upper falls of Johnston Canyon. And it's only like a 3 mile hike. It's easy. It's all paved, but it was so gorgeous. And you're so deep in the canyon that you don't realize how smoky it is outside of this canyon. And you're just walking along the river, this beautiful, pristine, clear water. And along the way, there's just waterfall after waterfall after waterfall. And people are like lining up just to take selfies next to these waterfalls, but there's an even more impressive waterfall just a few hundred yards ahead, and a few but everyone's lining up to take all these pictures, and rightly so, because they're like the first waterfall you come up to is just this emerald green pool that all of this water is just pouring down into. And you take your selfie by going into this little cave off to the right. You cross a bridge over this little collection of water and go into this little cave, and then there's a little opening where you can be up next to the waterfall.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So is
And
this like a full-time like river or full-time body of water, or is this all just like summer glacial melt?
it's I'm guessing it's summer glacial melt, because it's bone chilling cold the whole. And I mean, there's glaciers all over the place, so I would presume that's the case. But uh, we hiked up that, just waterfall after waterfall, chipmunks running everywhere, and it was really cool and really interesting to see just the diversity that was up there. There were people from all around the world, but especially from Germany, Russia, China, and Korea. A
Huh.
lot of a lot of people from those countries, but it was really cool. And well, I don't know if they were Canadians or if they were actually from France, but we heard a lot of French being spoken as well.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe people from Quebec who just went west.
Yeah, yeah. But that if you go to Banff, you have to do Johnston Canyon, the lower and upper falls, because it's absolutely incredible. Um,
Man, it sounds like I need to check it out. I mean, I've just seen pictures up there, well, including yours, and it's just breathtakingly beautiful.
oh yeah. So after Johnston Canyon, we got some food and we went and checked out Lake Louise, but we really wanted to check out Moraine Lake, which is we've seen so many pictures of people canoeing or kayaking on there, and just these turquoise blue waters of Moraine Lake. But what you don't realize is Moraine Lake gets packed quickly, really quickly. So we drove
So
up to Moraine Lake,
that's
and they
like
had
the
it all.
tourist hotspot of Banff.
I guess so. I guess that, and uh, there's not that much parking.
Okay.
So they have like a few miles before you get to Moraine Lake and Lake Louise, or before you exit for that, there's a big parking lot that you can park and take a bus up to these places. I see. I thought Lake Louise was the bigger hotspot because it has a big hotel there. And the water is a little bit different color. It's more of a green, like almost like how do I put it? I don't even know how to put this. It's like they filled up the lake with Gatorade. It was it was it was gorgeous.
Like lemon lime Gatorade, like or like
No,
more like green aqua,
it
like
was like green aqua color.
okay.
Right, that's Moraine Lake. So or Lake Louise, sorry. So we passed Moraine Lake because they had it all blocked off, and we went up to Lake Louise and we checked it out, and there were so many people, and I don't even necessarily think they have that much more parking. I mean, unless you're staying at the hotel, but there were so many people there. So we checked it out real quick. We walked around a little bit, but everyone is crowded around the lake taking selfies. It was just, I don't know. We figured we would just come back or something because it was just way too crowded. But
Yeah.
it was. gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, so beautiful, just a ton of people, a ton of people. So after we got done there, we drove back by Moraine Lake, hoping that they'd let a few people in, but it was still blocked off. So we went to Bow Lake, the along the Bow Glacier Falls Trail. We went to Pito Lake. We went to Mastaya Canyon, but when we were there, Mastaya Canyon was closed. They had torn up the parking lot, just completely torn it up. And we had read that Mastaya Canyon is like a must do. It's absolutely beautiful. You have to do it. So we parked along the road, and as you're getting up to a trail, they have a little sign that said, absolutely no parking up to a $20,000 fine or something like that. And I was
Holy
like,
smokes.
well, we're parked on the road, not next to the sign, so we're gonna risk it. So it's only 0.7 miles down to Mastaya Canyon to the actual water flow. So we ran down there really quick, and it was really incredible. It just seeing how the water from the glaciers has just eaten away at the rocks and caused the swerve back and forth, and how quickly it's rushing down the river was just incredible. So we went down there and we took some pictures and just hiked around it, filled up our camelbacks with fresh glacier water, which was amazing. It was delicious.
Do you even have to filter it up there?
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
You probably don't have to where we were at, but like
Never
up
worth
at
risking it.
up at Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, you would definitely want to with how many bugs are in the water.
Oh, good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So from Mastaya Canyon, we decided we better find a camping spot, and I think we went to some Forest Service road and just camped right off of there. We stopped at a campsite and made dinner, but why pay for a campsite when there's a perfectly good service road just right over here that we can pull off and throw the tent up, which was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. We
Go
made
on.
dinner, we set up camp, and then the mosquitoes happened. And I
Oh,
mean, just hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes that are slow but persistent. They don't even care that you're swatting. They just, oh, they don't even care about dying. There's so many. They're trying to eat you alive. And since we were in the trees, there was no wind, and with all the smoke, there was just this horrible greenhouse effect, and it was so hot. I was, I was like, why are we camping?
and so
It
you're
was,
trapped in the humidity, probably sweating, which is then attracting more mosquitoes.
oh yeah, we threw the hammock up for all of 2 minutes, and we're like, okay, let's get in the tent. I'm done. And so we just laid there for a few minutes. And after the mosquitoes went and told their other mosquito friends, our tent was nearly blacked out with mosquitoes.
Holy
Just
smokes.
all of them just waiting for us. And then
That's
to top
disgusting.
oh, I know. And then to top it all off, we hear the lightning in the distance.
Oh,
And this big storm is moving in, or at least what I thought
no.
was a big storm. And I'm thinking it's about to start pouring rain. It's going to get flooded. We got to get the hell out of here.
And you're
And
just
it
in the
was,
ditch on the side of the road, which is going to get all the
well,
wash from everywhere.
no, it's not actually a ditch on the side of the road. It's public use land. You just take this Forest Service road back in. We went in maybe a quarter mile, and there's several little spots along the way that you can just throw a
Oh,
tent.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it theoretically it would be great if it weren't for the heat and the mosquitoes and the storm rolling in and all of that. But um, I'm ready to throw the tent in the car and just go get a hotel. This is probably the worst night of camping we've ever had. This is the one time where we were camping and I was like, I don't know if I want to camp anymore. This is so terrible.
Dude, you need to get a thermocell. Have you ever used that?
No.
There's so many just like bullshit products in the outdoor hunting camping space, but that's one that like actually works for keeping mosquitoes friggin' away from you. It works.
We needed that. We needed that.
You're like,
So,
you tell me now.
yeah, seriously. So, got a horrible night's sleep. Horrible. And we're like, okay, you know what? Let's just throw everything in there and let's keep the adventure going. Let's get back to fun stuff. And this is like super early. I think we got up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. And we were like, we're going to get to Moraine Lake before anyone else, or at least before they close it down. And so we pack up the tent. And as soon as we get out of the tent, mosquitoes just flock to us. And it was like, it was so aggravating and a little bit scary how many mosquitoes there were. I don't even know if we packed everything up. It was like just roll it into a ball and throw it in the back of the car. We'll deal with it later. And along with like 20 or 30 mosquitoes in our gear that are just flying around the car.
We'll
So,
save them for later.
yeah, save those for later. So, get in the car, get the heck out of there. And then we drive back up to Moraine Lake and we're like, okay, this time we're gonna see it. It's gonna be awesome. We got there at like 6:40, 6:30, somewhere around there. Like not as early as we could, but early enough you would think like we could get a spot. Get there and there's the road blockades blocking the whole road. And so they have the entire thing blocked off. And we're furious. And I'm like, you know what? We're gonna make the best of this. We've got our inflatable kayak with us. Let's go back up to Lake Louise and just kayak for a bit.
So hold on, they block it off when there's like a certain quota of people in the area? Like, is that when they block it off, or they just block it off arbitrarily when they're like doing work or something?
No, when there's like a certain number of people up
Okay. Okay,
at
that
Marin.
makes sense. That's okay.
Right, and you
You
would
went
think
back
that
to Lake
early.
Louise,
Right.
the previous lake?
So
Okay.
so on your way up to Lake Louise, there's a turnoff for Moraine Lake. So you need to do both of them. Whenever you go to Banff, you have to do both of them. So we went back up to Lake Louise, and there weren't that many people around. So we busted out the kayak, blew it up real quick. It's an inflatable kayak, and then we kayaked along Lake Louise, and we went as far as we could. And off in the distance, we could see the glacier along the ridge line that's feeding into this lake, and it was so peaceful. We were probably the second or third kayak out on the lake. And
Oh wow.
we decided to buy this kayak specifically for this trip because we looked at how much it would cost to rent a kayak on this lake, and it was $80 American to rent a kayak
Holy smokes. That's like you do
for an
that
hour.
3 times and you own it.
Yeah, for an hour.
$80 an hour?
$80
That's
an
nuts.
hour. It's like that's no time at all. And so I think we got our kayak for like 250
Yeah.
around there. And we're like, we'll use it several times and just it'll totally be worth it. And
And
so
the inflatable, you can just launch it from anywhere. You can make your own launch and just go wherever and then just pack it back in the car.
exactly. And we have it down pat. I mean, we can get this thing up and going or down and packed in like 5 minutes.
Nice.
But early morning, the smoke wasn't quite as bad. The storm blew a little bit of it out, but just being out on the lake and just seeing this emerald green water was just incredible. Getting out to the as far as we could go and seeing the glaciers, it was just it's worth it. Buy a kayak and go up to Lake Louise. So we get done there, had a good time, and then the tourists started pouring in as we were getting back. So we're like, you know what? Let's go find something else. Maybe Moraine Lake will be open. By this point, we're feeling a little disheartened because Moraine Lake was like the place. And as we're driving along, we see the road blockade. They've got it all blocked off, and then they block right in front of us off, and they let this bus go through. And I was like, "You have to be kidding me!" They
Dude, a
let this
bus
bus.
with like 30 people got to go in and not us who were
Yeah,
here previously.
yeah. So they block our road off, let the bus through. un unblockade us. And then they start waving us over to Moraine Lake, and we're like, "Oh my God,
Nice.
perfect timing! Yes!" So
Good.
drive out to Moraine Lake, and we figured, you know what? We did our kayaking. Let's just hike along the lake, and it was a, you would think just water melting from these glaciers would be the same color, but it's not. It's such a brighter blue, and
Oh
it's
wow. Is that
it's
just because all the like minerals it's picking up as it goes through the rocks?
I think so. I would assume so, but it's blue instead of this green, and it's clear but not that clear, and as you get deeper, there's still a lot of bugs up there, but it's mostly moths. And so this moth comes down and hits the water, and it's fluttering around, and then you just see all these fish come up to the surface and try and catch them, and just moth after moth,
Oh
just,
wow.
and then they swim back into the blue and disappear. So we hiked along Moraine Lake, and it was incredible. It's like Lake Louise is beautiful, Moraine Lake is beautiful in its own way, but I liked Moraine Lake more. I don't know, there just weren't as many people, and you know, part of eating it off, kind of preserving it so you're not having to deal with as many crowds. That was nice. It was really nice.
So it's moraine as in like a drainage on a mountain slope, correct?
Um, it is Moraine, moraine. So
Okay.
I think that is what it is.
Because
It's
I
like
the
all the
first time I heard
rocks.
that term, when people were saying, "Yeah, that mountain's got a nice moraine," I thought they were saying, I thought they were saying meringue, like on a lemon meringue pie. Like the snow just looks like a fluffy whipped topping, and I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. That sounds awesome.
Oh man, I want to go to the moraine forest. Yeah, moraine.
So
So
moraine, okay.
so Melody was getting really annoyed with me because I kept stopping to take pictures of mushrooms. And I mean, you've seen my
Wait,
Instagram.
wait,
Like half
yeah,
my
that
pictures
is
are
like
mushrooms.
your thing.
Yeah. So I love mushrooms. I don't know that much about them, but I love the way they look. They're just so unique, and I love taking pictures of them, and just all the different varieties. I think it's so cool. And this was like the mother lode. You couldn't go 10 feet without hitting a mushroom. And so she's trying to hike, and I'm sitting down there with my phone, like trying to get the right the right angle and the right filter and everything. She's like, "Can we just hike?"
And you're like, hold on,
Please.
spouse, I'm the fungus king. You must wait.
Yeah. So we eventually made it to the end, and then on the way back, Melody's looking down at the water, and she's just like, "I want to jump in." I was like, "Do it."
And
So,
how cold was that water?
how cold was that water?
Oh my gosh, the coldest I've ever been in.
The coldest she has ever been in. I mean, it's barely not ice. It's
Yeah, you're
barely water.
seeing it run off from the glacier right in front of you.
Yeah, so she had her swimsuit on, and she gets on this rock, and I record her, and she jumps in and makes a big splash, and there was like some Asian family walking by at that exact time, and just they started applauding her. Just, it was so weird. But she swam around for a while, and I'm sure that was the exact pick me up that she needed. But it looked really inviting. It looked like a lot of fun.
I don't see how that could not just like instantly like snap you wide awake, take your
Yeah,
breath away cold.
right, right. Which I just remembered in Glacier, when we were driving along the road, there was a spot that the river was just this beautiful green. I guess it had picked up some minerals along the way, but we stopped and we were like, we got to jump in. We have to. And there was this smelly hippie couple that had also stopped there that we asked to take our picture, or actually, we asked them to take a video, and of course, they ruined it. So
Ah,
we
bummer.
we jumped in the water and thought they were recording it the whole time, and it was a ton of fun, and it was a great experience. But we get out and look at the phone, and they took two pictures, one right before we jumped in and one right before we got out, thinking that they were taking a video. It's like, how high are
Oh,
you?
that was the start and the stop. But
Yeah,
they just done photo both times. No.
yeah. And we took a video of them, and of course we did it right. But either way, it was worth the experience. It was a ton of fun. So yeah, we got back from Moraine Lake, and uh, I think that was the last thing that we did in Banff before we started heading back east. Oh no, there was one last thing. We went to the cave. Um, what's it called? Cave and Basin National Historic Site,
Huh.
which it was like I think it was like $4 each for admission, somewhere around there, and that's actually in Banff. But
Okay.
we thought it was going to be this big cave and lots to see.
Like
No,
Carlsbad or something.
yeah, yeah, exactly, like Carlsbad Caverns. But no, you pay your $4, they give you a stamp, and then you go into this building and you think you're going to go down into the caverns and stuff. But you walk in and it's this tiny little room with, a hot spring coming up into it, and it smells horrible, of course, the sulfur. But you're crammed into this tiny little cave, this tiny room where like the majority of it is a pool that you can't touch and you can't feel the water because it's protected and you're too far away, and there's all these protected snails that live in it and this and that. And then you're just along like this outer platform that they've put crammed with everyone else trying to take a picture of this mediocre hot spring that smells awful.
Oh man, what a letdown. I've been
It
caving
was
only a couple times and it's been like awesome most of the time, but it wasn't just a cold room full of fart snails. That sounds like a disappointment.
a little bit. So that's like the one thing in Banff I don't recommend. Don't pay the $4 to go see Cave and Basin National Historic Site. They had another hot spring pool outside, and all these signs everywhere saying, don't touch the water, don't disturb any of these endangered snails or anything like that. And there was a few other spots where they had a boardwalk where you could see the water coming out of the ground. And I mean, it was cool, but I've seen plenty of other hot springs that are much more worth it, like Homestead Crater here in Utah, which is out in Hebert. That's super cool. You can go swimming in it, you can go diving in it and snorkeling in it, and it like fills up at a rate of like 100 gallons a minute. That's worth it. If you
Oh
come to
wow.
Salt Lake, go see Homestead Crater. Absolutely.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. We did that the first time we ever came out to Utah. But that was the last thing we did in Banff, and then we headed back to Calgary, and we stayed at another hotel, which was super nice, and we got sushi, and of course we had to stop at Tim Hortons, like you have to if you ever go to Canada. You got to stop at Tim Hortons.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory. So we got sushi at I think it's called Keto, something along the lines of keto, and it was just great service. Loved going there. They served just top notch sushi, gave us free drinks, free appetizers. That was a lot of fun. But anyways, once we stayed in Calgary, we had a lot of booze because it was so cheap up there. But we headed back south, and out of Calgary, and the whole drive south from Calgary back towards the U.S. It was a lot cooler. I mean, we woke up and it was like in the high 50s, maybe the low 60s, and there was just a wind keeping all the smoke to our west,
Okay, so it's actually pushing it off of you this time.
south, and this wall that kept all the smoke away. And once we finally get past the border, it's just clear. We can see all of Glacier, and we're like, okay, now we have to go back through Glacier.
Oh wow. Those are the scenic views you were waiting for.
Yes. Oh my God, it was incredible. Because as soon as you hit the border, you can see Glacier. It's right there. So we decided to go back through there and just see everything, going to the Sun Road and seeing the small island that's in the first lake when you come in the north entrance. I can't remember what it's called, like Dog Lake or something. But now you can see everything, and it's just incredible. But once we get over the ridge on the going to the Sun Road, we start to see some smoke. Not a ton of smoke, but like there's a fire close, obviously, that's kind of blowing in. And so, we make a couple of stops. We stop at the visitor center at up top and look around and everything, and just enjoy and take in all the views. And it was so much better this time. It was so gorgeous. Like, I can't believe how much we were missing, and
Yeah.
how much was just right there, just beyond the smoke. At every pass and turn, you're like, I can't believe that was there. Like, I can't believe there was so much smoke. I couldn't see that. So we decided, okay, we have to stop back at Lake McDonald again, because it was so smoky we couldn't see the other side. It just wasn't as good. And we get to Lake McDonald and we get down to the riverbank, and there is a massive, well, I shouldn't say massive. There was a fire on the other side of the lake, and that's where some of the smoke we had just seen was coming from.
So you were
And
actually seeing the flames now.
yes, you could see the flames. And it was a lot more clear, so the lake did look a lot more beautiful. You could see all the colors of the rocks without all the smoke everywhere. So it was that much better that time. But we're sitting there watching this fire for a while, and so is everyone else. And then through the smoke comes this plane, and you think it's just this tiny little plane, and it dumps water, and they're trying to control the fire. And
Oh,
it comes
wow.
down and dips into the lake, picks up some water, and goes off and starts circling around. And then another plane comes out of the smoke and is pouring water on there. And these two planes are just circling around trying to control this fire. And it's not that big. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, they've got this for sure. They can get this out. It's not that big. They're keeping at it, just flying round and round. I think they can control this. But we ended up leaving. We didn't stay too long to watch that, because it was kind of sad, just seeing this fire destroy this beautiful hillside.
Well, these two little planes, it was up to them to stop it.
They were pretty big. They were bigger than I
Okay.
thought. Yeah, they just looked tiny being that far away, but they could hold a good amount of water. But about a week after that, I was looking at the local news, and I saw just a picture of this burnt hillside with flames at either end of it, and I recognized it. And it was just completely burned up, and it was the other side of Lake McDonald, because I
Oh,
had taken a
wow.
picture of it, and I recognized the ridge line, but now it was just black because it had been burnt, and fire everywhere. And so I saw that in the news, and that just made me sad, because they weren't able to control it, and it was out of control. I can't imagine what it was like after we left.
Dude, that's crazy to think that you're probably one of the last people to take a picture of it before it burned. Like, it must have burned that same day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just, yeah, because that was moving pretty quickly. That fire was moving really quickly. But it made me so sad. I hope it wasn't man-made. I'm not going to rule that out, because there weren't any storms blowing through that area. So, I don't know, it just made me really sad.
Dang.
But after we got done there, we headed south, and we drove along one of the lakes in Montana, and it's beautiful up there. It is really beautiful. I can see why people have, little getaways and houses out next to the lake in Montana right there, because it's gorgeous. So gorgeous.
Wow,
But
that sounds incredible. So after that, did y'all do anything else on the way back, or were you just so
we
exhausted from all this travel?
we were determined to find a winery. And after all that crappy wine at the beginning of the trip, we were like, we've got to get some wine. It doesn't have to be good wine. It just has to be drinkable. And so we ended up finding a little winery in Montana, and it was good. It was good. It was more than just drinkable. We actually enjoyed it. It's called
Nice.
Tailing Loop Winery in Kalispell, Montana, and it's like the only winery within a few hundred miles. But this woman about my age just decided like, hey, she wants to do that. She's tired of all these bars with these gross old guys go to, and she wants to have a place that's just a little classier for everybody else to go to. And so she has some sort of deal with some wineries out in Washington, and they send her the juice, and she makes the wine there in Montana with the juice from Washington. And
Oh,
so that
so
was
they've got like a cooperative set up where they've kind of partnered on that.
yeah, exactly. And so she has this great setup, has live music on the weekends and stuff. And while we were there, she had all her local friends there. It was a really cool place, Tailing Loop Winery. Really enjoyed it. But it was cool just seeing, this entrepreneur get out there and just lay it out all on the line for something she really believed in. Because I
Yeah.
definitely believe in wine. I'm all for it.
And with that passion and that dedication, it sounds like it kind of showed itself in her work and in the establishment that it really had a legitimate, real, passionate feel about it.
It really did. You could tell she really cared. She really cared about this place and really loved what she was doing and believed in it. And it seemed like her home. That was her home.
That's cool. That's cool. And then from there, how far was it? How long was your drive back to Salt Lake?
Oh man, from there, we thought about camping. We were like, you know what? We'll make it to like Idaho Falls or something, and we'll just camp out there. But
Which is a
having
super cool thing about anywhere in the West, that there's so much checkerboard public land that you actually can do that. You don't have to plan out a specific spot. You can just be like, well, let's find the closest land and just go for it.
right. And freecampsites.org or .com is a great resource.
Okay.
Really great resource.
I didn't know
We
about that
use
one.
that all the time. Oh yeah, yeah. That's a great site to find just spots when you're out in the middle of nowhere or you just don't want to pay for a campsite. So that's definitely worth checking out. Absolutely.
Huh.
We
Yeah,
use that all the time. So we had picked out a spot near Idaho Falls, heading south from Kalispell or Kalispell, however they say it. And we decided, with how horrible our camping experience was up in Canada, we just wanted to get home. Well, and there were a couple of other things that kind of made our decision for us. Now it's a 9.5 hour drive from Kalispell all the way to Salt Lake City. So it's a
oh
good
wow.
little bit. It's a good
Yeah.
ways. But we decided, you know what, maybe we should just go all the way. We're like, and we're back and forth, but the closer we get to Idaho Falls, the more fires we're seeing. And then the areas we were looking at staying, we were getting the alerts on our phone letting us know that there's like fires in the area, and you can go to this gym or this church to take shelter or whatever. And I was
Oh
like,
wow, that's
okay,
serious.
maybe camping's not such a good idea.
Yeah.
And we'd round a hill or something and we'd see fire on the hill, and it's like, maybe we shouldn't camp. Maybe we should just go all the way home. And so, oh man, we got in at like 1 in the morning, which isn't terrible, but after all this
After
travel, we
9 hours of straight driving. Whew.
well, even more than that, because we went through Glacier, we stopped at the winery, so it was quite a it was quite an ordeal because yeah, we made the whole trip all the way from Calgary in one day.
Whoa. That's
Yeah,
crazy, dude.
and even with the detour, we headed south, and somehow we ended up on the wrong road, heading back towards the border, and got sidetracked for like 40, 45 minutes.
Ugh.
Stopped at Tim Hortons again, had to refuel, which I can see why Tim Hortons is such a big deal up there. Like everything is done in house. Like it's a good establishment. Yeah, we made the trip all the way from Calgary in one day. So 14 hours of well, closer to 15 and a half hours of driving. But by the time we got home, we just slept over half the day.
Yeah.
So exhausted. But in the end, it was so worth it. And even with all the smoke, I have to say Banff is the most beautiful place I've seen. Absolutely. I can't wait to go back with a lot less smoke and see all these sites again and see them in all their splendor.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So it sounds like this was a long journey. It was a whole lot of fun, but not without struggle. But nobody really tells stories where the weather was perfect and there were no struggles and there were no bugs. Like sometimes those little trivial things make it better. But you did this whole trip, and I'm just comparing it to when we were in Grand Tetons, which it just blew my mind. I thought that was amazing. So if somebody could only do one of these things, what would you recommend of Grand Tetons, Glacier, and Banff? If you could only do one, or I guess what order would you recommend visiting these?
Which order? To that, I would say it depends on what you want to do. If you want to hike and get out in the mountains and like backpack, I think I would lean towards the Grand Tetons because all the trails in Banff were heavily trafficked, tons of people, some of them were paved. I think they were a little more strict on where you could go. Well, obviously I didn't backpack in Banff, but the Tetons are just something that you have to do if you want to go backpacking because that trip was amazing. That was such an awesome trip. And I really hope we can make the Grand Teton Loop happen next year. That is definitely high on the list. Glacier and Banff, I mean, you could almost do that together depending on what you want to do because Glacier was we didn't get to do as much as we wanted to in Glacier because of all the fires. So it's hard to give a good opinion on that. But between like the Tetons and Banff, if you're wanting to just see amazing sights and you don't care about getting that deep into things, I would say Banff for sure. It's beautiful.
Okay.
You don't have to go that far to see all these. If you're wanting to do lots of little hikes, like 5 miles or less, go do Banff. But if you want to get out in nature and get a little deeper into things, go to the Grand Tetons. But I mean, your trails are still limited in Tetons as well. It's just, are you willing to go the distance? Are you willing to put the crampons on and get an ice axe and climb over the ridge, the ice-covered ridge, in the middle of July?
Well, I am now. If you had asked me months ago, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm from Texas.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. So, but like if you're going to go do Banff, plan it out, plan where you want to go to Lake Louise, go to Moraine Lake, go to Mastaya Canyon. If you can go up to Jasper National Park as well, go do that. And there's a great app that I'm not sponsored by or anything. It's called Hostel World.
Hostel World?
Hostel World.
Okay.
There's not that many hostels here in the U.S., but there are up in Canada. And if you're traveling by yourself, there were hostels in Banff for like $30
Oh,
a
wow.
night. As long as you're willing to stay on like a bunk bed with a room full of dudes or women or mixed, depending on your preference. It was like $30. Whereas if you wanted to get a hotel in Banff, it's going to be like $300 to $400
because it's all resorts and stuff.
Yeah, it's all resorts. Like I can't even imagine how much Lake Louise is. I didn't even look it up.
Ooh. Yeah.
But if you want a private room, these hostels are like $80 that you can find up there.
Okay.
A private room to yourself with your ensuite, your own private bathroom, $80. It's not bad for staying in the national park.
Yeah.
And some of these hostels I was looking at, They have like their own bar there. They had a breakfast that came with it. You get to meet all these other people that are traveling, and it's just really cool getting to know some of these people that are out there adventuring with you, that are, you know, side by side, but you wouldn't recognize them if you didn't just, you know, reach out and say hello. So I mean, if you're traveling by yourself, some of these hostels are great. But even if you're not traveling by yourself and you want your own private room, these hostels have options. And a lot of them will keep your bag for the day. If you don't want to lug everything around, they'll keep it for you. I know some of them charge, some of them they don't, a small fee, but they're just a really great option. I wish they were a bigger thing here in the US.
Yeah, that's cool. And it sounds like, just for somebody who's just traveling and, you know, you want to go explore it all at your own pace, sounds like a great option.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, Hostel World. Download it, travel the world.
Dude, I will check it out. And this talk has gotten me so fired up just about, I want to see mountains again. I want to go backpacking again. And just even before, when we had scheduled this, but before we started, after work today, I went and bought some new Merrills, because after that last trip up those mountains, I was kind of on the very last leg of my old leather combat boots that I was wearing that have served me well. But I got some new hiking boots, and so I am ready to go at it.
Nice. Which reminds me, there's an Instagram for you to follow if there's anyone in Texas. It's just called Flights from Texas. So like here in Salt Lake, I use flightsfromhome.slc and from SLC. Those are two Instagram pages that I use to get just ridiculously cheap flights. But there is one for Texas called Flights from Texas.
Okay.
You just look it up. Like they just had DFW to Paris round trip for $366.
What? That's crazy. I'm
Yeah.
flying to El Paso for more than that.
Yeah. So you need to follow them. I like last in March, the wife and I flew to Milan for $470 round trip each ticket.
Oh, that's nuts.
But there's that. There's some cheap airlines that are getting into the U.S. here, but you have to fly out of like Chicago or New York. A lot of places on the East Coast, some of them in L.A., but there's a company flying from like New York to all around Europe starting at $150.
That's crazy.
I can't remember if it's $150 round trip or one way. I would think one way, but still
Yeah.
$150. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's ridiculously cheap, like almost sketchy cheap.
Yeah, you just have to be willing to fly with just the carry-on. Like you can't be checking bags. Just bring your carry-on, a few dry fit shirts, dry fit shorts, and just get out there and do it. Stay in some hostels and go adventure.
You crowd in the plane, there's no lights or air conditioning. You sit next to a lady holding a chicken in her lap, and you're like, okay, that was a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, just because you have to get out of the plane and push it down the runway to take off, like you can't be picky for those prices.
Hey, that's how the Wright brothers did it, so it's got to work.
Exactly.
Oh man, well this has been a lot of fun, and dude, we've gone over an hour, and it's been great just hearing about your adventure and catching up, and it's super inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, it just get out there and do it. Of course, it's easier for me to say now that I'm in Salt Lake, and you know everything that my wife and I have done in the past year. Everything that we did in Texas just pales in comparison to what we've done in the last year, because now we have everything at our fingertips. So it is a little easier for us to do, but you know, find those cheap flights or just like quit making excuses and just do it. Just
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we did when we flew to Italy. We bought the tickets first, and then I requested off work, and I was like, screw it, I'll quit. I don't even care. We're gonna go to Italy.
I'm committed now, man.
Yeah.
Dude, and
Yeah.
it's so like, especially work, and like we tend to just make ourselves so busy all the time that it's so easy to find excuses, but when you just commit to it and be like, this is a goal of mine, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, I've never done that and then regretted it. Like there's so many times where I'm like, yeah, I want to do this, and got so close and then didn't do it for whatever reason, scheduling conflict, whatever. And I've regretted that. But I've never gone on one of these trips impromptu and regretted going. So I think that's encouraging. Just if you want to
Right.
do it, make it happen, man.
Right. I think you have to look at like, do you want to postpone your entire life? Like, I mean, are you going to put all your money into retirement? And I'm not saying don't save for retirement, but are you going to put all your money towards retirement and just defer your entire life and then look back and regret never doing anything because now you're too old to go out and have the adventures you wanted to have when you had the body that you could do it? Or do you want to take some risks? Do you want to live your entire life? I mean, when it comes to a trip or an adventure, one of the main things you should think about is, am I ever going to look back and regret this trip? Or am I going to be happy that I did it? And that's the way my wife and I live our lives a lot, is just like, should we do this trip? Hell yeah, it's going to be fun and we're going to be better for it. And we're going to have these experiences and it's going to help us grow and form us into a more well-rounded person.
Yeah. Man, especially like, so I live in the city and I try to get out every time I can. And I realize like I'm generally pretty good about doing that, going on some sort of trip or something once a month ish. And then I realize if I don't let it happen, I just like, I feel this like just crushing weight of being suffocated by the city and traffic and work and hustle bustle and just don't being crushed by all this pressure to do everything and be productive without experiencing any of the joy and beauty of the world. So I think trips like this, man, like it's so incredible to just go out there and get it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And like for us, it was tough being in Texas because we always wanted to be in Colorado. We always wanted to be in the mountains. Like that was where it was it for us, Colorado or Utah or just somewhere in the mountains, somewhere with something other than flat landscape. But a lot of times, Fort Worth, Dallas, it was kind of like a black hole for us. It just sucked us in, and we made a lot of excuses. And oh well, we're reasonable distance to go do this or that. And that's when we just finally decided, hey, we need to be living in a place that's more conducive to our lifestyle. And that's a huge reason why we moved to Salt Lake City. The cost of living is very reasonable. It's like slightly higher than Texas, but almost almost unnoticeable.
Yeah.
And once
Well,
we
so
decided,
y'all really committed by moving completely, but I think even for people who are less committed than that, there are so many times where you can look at, did you watch football all weekend? Did you watch a marathon of whatever? Or did you go out and experience something beautiful and amazing? Like pretty much everywhere in the US, there's somewhere you can go where you can get to something incredible. There's
right,
somewhere you can drive an hour and find adventure. I'm pretty sure in most places you can do that, but you just got to have the attitude to just go do it. Make yourself do it.
right. I mean, you have to make sacrifices. But when we were in DFW, the beautiful places and like one place that's very near and dear to our hearts is Mineral Wells. I proposed to my wife out at Mineral Wells
Yeah.
because that was one of our favorite places to go. And we would go rock climbing, and we jumped in the lake 2 weeks after it snowed one year. And my brother-in-law asked me to be his best man out there. So like Mineral Wells is very near and dear to us, and it's a lot of fun. I hear it's getting overcrowded, but there's also like Grapevine, running or riding the trails around Grapevine, or if you want to drive a few hours, there's the Ouachita Mountains in eastern Oklahoma,
Which
Broken
is
Bow.
beautiful, beautiful.
Oh,
So I've got a video on my channel, actually two videos. One's like really old and really crappy. I filmed it on like a knockoff GoPro. But yeah, if you live in like Arkansas or Oklahoma or even North Texas, like absolutely get out to Ouachita. That's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, and I went there with my father when I was growing up. He would take us camping out there, and I have so many good memories. And it's 3.5 hours from DFW, maybe 4, but at least the landscape changes up, and it's beautiful. It's great to get out there. Or if you want to drive a little further and go along 30, there's Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is really pretty. And if you go a little northwest, getting into the Ouachita National Forest still,
Yep.
it's so gorgeous. So
Yeah.
gorgeous up there.
But just go out, find it, go get it. Somebody just commented, without adventure of some kind, life gets boring and will just drag you down. And amen to that, brother. I completely
really
agree.
Just find your little oasis and go to it. I mean, don't make the excuses, go do it. For us, every year we were driving to Colorado to go snowboarding, or to go to all the breweries and just see the mountains. And once we decided to move to Salt Lake, thank God she got into doctorate school, but we were going to move either way. We just made the decision, hey, we're going to do this. But it doesn't take a move, it just takes that decision, like, hey, we're going to do this, and do it.
Well, it sounds like now I just need to make a decision to get up there and experience Glacier, experience Banff. But first, next year, we're going to do that Grand Teton Loop. We're going to get it.
Yeah.
Ice axes, ropes, whatever it takes. We're
going to do. So we were out on the trail in the Tetons, and we're like 10, 11 miles into the trail, and we've got our massive packs on. I had how much was my pack? Like 60, 50
too much.
pounds?
Too much.
Too much.
We had like a 3-day hike turned into a 2-day hike, and I'm like, dude, what do you got? Your rock collection in here? This is ridiculous.
I used every piece of gear I had on me, which reminds me, you owe me a new poop shovel.
Oh yeah, I do.
But anyways, we're on the trail, and we're like 10 to 11 miles in this trail. We're past the point where tourists go. We're past the point, and we hear these footsteps behind us. Just look behind us, and these freaking CrossFit just maniacs are sprinting. I mean a full-on sprint with these tiny packs that are like less than the size of a beer canister, just hauling, and they're just calling ahead, excuse us, and they are just hauling ass. So maybe we can do that. Maybe we can be those guys next year.
They are at least complete the loop. I think they were trying to get over Hurricane Pass before dark, which was still like miles ahead of us.
Way out there. Just way out there.
But those dudes were so jacked and so intense. I half expected one of them to be like rolling a big tractor tire up the mountain and like with a rope be like, excuse me.
Right.
And somebody commented poop shovel. I just go behind a bush or in a cornfield and let it go. Well, we're up in the mountains in a public park, so there's not a cornfield up there. So not going to do that.
You got to dig a hole.
But somebody said bring a bike horn for when you pass people.
It'd be better if it was just the bell. Just ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Well, what was cool is like once we got to that fork, like once we got up Cascade Canyon and had to choose North Fork or South Fork, really we passed what, 2, maybe 3 groups of people. So like there weren't that many people on the trail.
I think there were only 2 groups of people at that point.
We passed one and the other one flew by us.
Yeah. But once you get to that fork, that's when things get really awesome. I mean, it was beautiful all the way up Cascade Canyon and seeing Valhalla, and taking a dip in the water that's like just bone chilling cold. That's about how cold the water was up in Banff. Was when we got in the water in that creek. That's about how cold it was.
Yeah, I think that was like in when we were in Lee Lake or up top.
Up top.
Oh yeah, that was like, I mean, I was seeing the glacier drip into it 10 feet from where I was filling up my water bottle. That was 33 degrees.
Yeah.
And you're right. There were tons of mosquitoes up there too, but it was so cold. They were just like, you just, but there were just so many.
Yeah, I wish we could have had like a little fire or something, or maybe we should have had the little gadget that you were talking about.
Thermocell. Yeah, check it out. It's totally worth it.
What's like 3 more pounds on my pack? Whatever. Okay.
We'll get you a Sherpa or something
Well,
next
like the
time.
majority of the weight in our packs was the snack bags that I made that was like full of trail mix and Cliff Bars and fig bars.
Yeah, we had way too much food. I think on those trips, like you're so afraid of running out of food that you're like, okay, I'm just gonna be pounding calories. I'm gonna eat a Cliff Bar, and then I'm gonna eat a whole banana. Why'd I bring a banana? I don't know. But then I'm gonna eat peanuts, and then I'm just and you just like pack all this food. But like all this food that's designed for actual like hiking is so just like calorie dense, and you're moving so much that you're just like, I'm not hungry for all this dense stuff, and so you end up just like carrying all this extra weight that's mostly
Yeah,
food.
yeah, it really was. I mean, by the end of the trip, after we kind of made a dent in the food, my pack was so much lighter. I think our snack bags were close to 10 pounds. Like, we didn't even need to bring meals. We could have just survived off of the snack bags. And
Yeah.
we probably could have made it the whole loop with just the snack bags.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I have expected like us to just stop on a trail and then you just open up and pull out like, I don't know, like croissants or like a baguette. Just like there was so much
Yeah,
food.
that would have been pretty good. But I don't know. The Velveeta skillet mills, like, I've
Ugh.
had them since the trip. I actually have. We
Why? Why would you subject yourself to that?
Oh, actually, yeah, we had them in Banff. I brought them into Banff, but it was a different kind, so my farts weren't just like caustic and just horrible.
You probably were the cause of that fire.
Actually, when we camped in the woods, we went hiking around, and there was a couple that was camping along the river, but there were dry leaves everywhere, and they had this big roaring fire, just completely irresponsible. I mean, they hadn't made a fire pit, they didn't really put rocks around it, and there's just dead brush everywhere waiting to go into the woods. And
And
I
you're like,
think a little
this
bit
is how
later,
it happens, you morons.
yeah, so we hiked around, saw them, and we went further. And on our way back, maybe 20 minutes later, they were gone. They
Huh.
had packed up their stuff and left 2 potatoes wrapped in foil in the fire, and had the fire still going. I don't know if they were coming back, but I got out a couple of bags. The river was right there, started filling it up with water, and just put the fire out because I was like, I don't feel
Yeah.
like burning down in my sleep.
Man, well, it's good you were there because that's just stupid to leave something like that. So glad you were there to put it out before another one started.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it happens. It's people just building these huge fires and just being so irresponsible with it.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and that's happened in Utah as well several times. I can't believe how many times I'm walking on a trail, I see people sitting around a campfire or something, and I keep hiking, and then on my way back, there it is, still burning.
Whew. Yeah. I think the biggest thing down here is just people tossing cigarettes off the highway. And mostly just because it's all grasslands that you hit one spot and it just the wind takes it and it just goes.
Yeah.
Man, well, it sounds like you've had some awesome adventures. I think it's kind of time to start shutting it down. But from Grand Tetons to Glacier to Banff and back, man, you've been up to some cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And the week before we went to Banff, we were in Colorado visiting some friends.
Dang, dang. Well, never stop seeking adventure, dude. That's freaking awesome. Keep it going. Keep taking awesome pictures, and I look forward to seeing the next one.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Thank you to everybody who tuned in for this. It was fun to have Jonathan on the show. Just to hear about all the awesome stuff that he's been up to. Definitely inspiring to me to get out there and adventure more and to see more freaking mountains. Man, I want to get up there. So thanks for everybody who watched it. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.